So I played the new Resident Evil, and it was a game, and it was pretty good, and it was a pretty good game. Capcom has been knocking it out of the park for years, it seems like. Earlier last decade, they put out Resident Evil 6, and it was met with very little praise. The series that created the survival horror genre had been turned into a third-person action shooter with one of the most ridiculous stories in video games. Then Capcom said, remember when we used to make good games? Yeah, let's do that again. Then they just started hitting dingers left and right. Boom, Resident Evil 7. Boom, Monster Hunter World. Boom, Mega Man 11. Boom, Devil May Cry 5. Boom, Resident Evil 2. Boom, Resident Evil 3. Boom, Devil May Cry 5 again, but this time with Virgil. And surprisingly for me, Resident Evil 8 Village lands somewhere in between these two games. It somehow manages to have that fantastic survival horror element that RE7 brought back, while still having one of the stupidest stories in a video game. I guess stupid is a strong word, but it's most certainly very silly. I just thought that this was really gonna tie the overall Resident Evil story together. Resident Evil 6 spun the story completely out of whack, and 7 was too much of a standalone to really ask for it to tie everything together. And from the trailers, it seemed that Chris Redfield's incorporation was going to do just that. I didn't know what this game was about or what was gonna happen. Were we gonna see Leon, Claire, maybe Jill? Was Wesker gonna be brought back to life? I had no idea. But without spoiling anything, it seems like Capcom is going to continue to focus on expanding the universe of Resident Evil, which isn't a bad thing, as long as they stick to what works best in the series: survival horror. Before Resident Evil Village was released, I went back and played every single mainline Resident Evil game, and I actually loved most of them on revisit. However, Resident Evil 1 and 2, especially 1, just hit so well. The puzzles, level design, and atmosphere are impeccable in those two games. There's a puzzle in Resident Evil 1 where you find a bag of plant killer, so you run around the entire mansion looking for a plant to kill, you go to the bushes, the flowers, then out of nowhere you find this giant vine thingy in the greenhouse and it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So you go to pour the plant killer on it, but if you get too close to the plant, he starts to swing at you. But then you realize that the plant is connected to a fountain. And if you pour the plant killer in the sink that's connected to the fountain, it'll spray all over the plant. And it just feels so amazing to figure stuff like that out, because the game didn't tell you how to do it. And Resident Evil 8 just doesn't have a lot of puzzles like that. A lot of this game is, I need a crank for this. Then finding the crank, and turning the crank, and advancing in the game. The best puzzles are when you have both pieces and yet you still have to use your little brain up there to figure out how those pieces match. I had no idea I was supposed to pour the plant killer in the sink that was connected to the fountain, but when I found out I was like, what? I felt so smart, and disappointingly, there just aren't a ton of big ideas like that in Resident Evil Village. There are a lot of collectibles, though. Okay, we offer these goats of warding to protect the village and its people. Any who break them shall feel Mother Miranda's wrath. Damn, really? Shit. Seriously? I will say, in terms of action, survival horror, and scavenging for items to survive, Resident Evil Village absolutely thrives in that department, especially if you play on hardcore mode, which I do recommend. The first hour of the game may scare you away from playing on the hardest difficulty, but the game does a great job at making you feel like you never have enough ammo, while also making each combat encounter feel manageable. It's a really nice balance. Also, just a side note, please turn off aim and camera acceleration in your settings, it'll save you the headache. No, actually, you will get a headache if you don't. And I know that the first thing people want to know about Resident Evil 8 is if it's better than RE7. And while I won't say it's better, I will say I enjoyed it just as much, but for completely different reasons. Resident Evil 7 was a great game. Great game. It was the scariest in the franchise, and still is by a mile. It had amazing puzzles and level designs that were heavily inspired by the very first entry. And despite the fact that Resident Evil 8 isn't nearly as scary, the survival horror aspect of the game is still just as prevalent as ever. The action sequences in the game are some of the best in the series. I love the location, I love the music, and Duke. That's it, just Duke. He's alive, he's there, and he's just right there, You look at him because you can't miss the guy. As for gripes with Village, I wanted the castle segment of this game to be a lot longer. All of my favorite puzzles are from that portion of the game, and it only takes up about a quarter of the entire runtime. I wish the story was a little bit more quiet in the same way that 7 was as well. There are a few ways that this game could have gone in terms of story. They could have gone with the MCU style and started to try to tie Ethan's story together with all the other Resident Evil characters, or they could have gone with the Mandalorian route and just kept Ethan's story completely separate from everyone else. But somehow Capcom found this weird gray area where Ethan is still separated from the larger universe, but the story is going in weird directions, and I don't know if people will really love it. I just have no idea. And I also have no idea what Resident Evil 9 is going to be about, but I guess my point with all this is that I would like to know. I know I complained a lot in this review, and usually I take it way easier on games than I do with movies, but I still really enjoyed Resident Evil Village. I think there's a lot to love here, and I still haven't even played Mercenaries mode, but I did hear that it's great. So with all that in mind, my dudes, I'm gonna give Resident Evil 8 Village a nice 79%. Okay, so yeah, that's it for this review. And now I'm going to tell you to go subscribe to my buddy Neko's channel, The Weeb's Closet. It hasn't even been up for a month yet, and already he has a few videos over 2,000. I think the Demon Slayer one on the channel is almost at 3, or maybe it's at 3 by the time I post this video, which is crazy because none of my videos have hit 3,000, but you know, no big deal. Anyways, definitely go check out that channel. I'm going to be on there every week, reacting to and talking about anime and anything else we find interesting. So go subscribe to that channel. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, please, as well. Thank you all for watching, and I will see y'all later.